Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to, the first post-match review, analysing our round 17 game against the Giants. Of course, final scores 116 to 104. Obviously, 2 goals, the difference in the end, but doesn't tell the full tale of the tape. So, of course, we will roll through it from the get-go, and you may already know me from some of my work that I'm doing over on my other channel, Supercoach Edge, so feel free to go and check that out. Let us know in the comment section down below if you like what we're doing. Get behind us. Let's do things from the top by going through the breakdown quarter by quarter. We obviously came out of the blocks, kicked 8 goals for 52 to the Giants, 3 goals, 119, and looked like it was going to be one of those matches that it wasn't going to be a complete walkover, but the way that we started, we thought, here we go, we've set ourselves up nicely for a bit of a nice win. And I feel as though the players thought that as well. May have got ahead of themselves, and then, as we know, from the second quarter onwards, it was a completely different side on both sides of the field, really, for the Giants and for Carlton. So the Giants ended up kicking 7 goals, 1 in the second quarter, to ours. We ended up kicking 2 goals straight. And then the avalanche from the Giants continued. They kicked another 7 goals, 4 in the third quarter, to our 1 goal, 2. And then the last quarter, we ended up making our way back into the game. Bit of a late charge, of course. The Giants restricted to 1 goal, 2, and we ended up kicking 5 goals, 2. So the margin, as it turned out to be, a little bit flattering. We'll kind of get into positives, but we should probably start with let's start with the positives. I guess, the first quarter, our ball movement, I felt as if it was, a continuation from the form that we were showing in the second, half, I guess you could probably say, against the Tigers last round. And then it was like we just switched off, really. It always intrigues me psychologically when we see games like this, like players, do they switch off? Do they feel the pressure once they, start to, concede a couple of goals to the opposition? I just don't know. But, obviously they have people employed at the club to look into that sort of stuff psychologically wise. But it is always intriguing. But we were world beaters in the first quarter, obviously. But one quarter doesn't make a win or a game in this case. So, we were moving the ball quite well. Harry has been kicked, was it 3 goals in the first quarter? Looked like it was, if he was our avenue to goal, what could Charlie provide? And as it turned out, virtually nothing. And not really, solely the fault of him. It was just due to the fact that the Giants just got on top of us. We'll roll through some major stats here, which will kind of, I guess, highlight parts of our game that we just fell away in, where we've normally been quite strong in. So let's roll through some key stats here and key discrepancies. But from, I guess, the couch, the observation side of things, it just looked as though, obviously getting beaten in the middle. The ruck is probably one area that we may have underestimated at the selection table, by dropping Pitney and bringing in TDK as the sole resource up against a big-bodied Briggs, who, lumbering ruckman, very much an old-school ruckman, bash and crash, like a Nan Curvis last week, who we kind of rested TDK against because we wanted to sort of protect him from, that bash and crash play that, Nan Curvis is well-renowned for, and Briggs is as well, running in with knees, all that sort of stuff. And he just got ragdolled virtually. It wasn't a very good matchup for TDK, 1 out. And, our only answer was to put Harry in the ruck. And that obviously took away our best resource on the forward line. But outside of that, the buck stops with the dominance the Giants showed in the midfield, because we just weren't able to get our hands on the ball and move the ball forward and give us an opportunity to really score any goals through quality inside 50s. So let's go through the hitouts. So they ended up finishing with 45 hitouts to our 22. So more than doubled there. And we've been averaging for the season to date 33.1, and the Giants have been averaging 35.3. So you can really see there we're below par and they're above par. So that kind of sums things up there. Clearance-wise, I was very surprised that we actually ended up winning the clearances, 46 to 43. 3 differential there in our favour. Centre clearance is 17 apiece. Stoppage clearance is 29 to 26 in our favour. Possession-wise, the one big standout is the Giants actually had 82 more uncontested possessions, which I guess highlights the lack of pressure that we were applying, especially the drop away. The pressure, I think, in the first quarter was quite good, but we just stunned them out of the blocks, and for them to wrestle momentum back and then have that real dominance in the uncontested side of things really does show that, 262 to 180 in their favour. It shows that they had, the time, the space, the time, I guess, to find that space to really spread wide, to take those kicks, hit up targets, all that sort of stuff, where we were just sort of flat-footed and, probably guarding space, tactically, but not pressuring our opponents, our direct opponents, individually across the board. Turnovers, we had 61 to 53. But overall, possession-wise, the Giants, no surprise, had 46%. We had 35%. And that was for the match overall. The other big discrepancy was the marks. And it was something that I didn't check the stats in-game. And I was like, I'm just going to check it post-game. See where things land. And it looked as though they were marking everything, especially in the forward 50. Comparing their dominance, their aerial dominance inside forward 50 compared to our lack of dominance and lack of structure, probably, is a good way to summarise it. Really is highlighted by the fact that they had 92 marks to our 57. And we're averaging, believe it or not, 90 marks a game, and we had 57. Compare that to the Giants, they averaged 90 marks a game and they ended up having 92. So they completely overwhelmed us. Didn't give us the time, space to hit up kicks, to hit up players with, efficient kicks, really. And the other big one was the marks inside 50. They had 15, and I reckon probably 10 of those would have been Jesse Hogan, and we had 8, which was kind of surprising. I thought it might be less than that, but I reckon a bulk of those were probably taken by Harry in the first quarter. We'll go through a few things as well in terms of what I've noted down as I guess the key takeaways more than anything. Tackles, they had 77 to our 60, which again highlights the lack of pressure on our part. But the big part for me was this stat. Tackles inside 50, they had 26 and we had 4. They were averaging for the season 11 tackles inside 50 per game. They ended up with 26, as I said. We averaged 13 and we had 4 for the game. Again, pressure just wasn't there. Intensity at the ball, at the opponent. Let's roll through a few of the things that I've kind of noted. Spoke about the ruck setup as well. I think we ended up losing that pretty much at the selection table. Going into the game, we should have known that. To his credit, TDK has actually performed well against, big-bodied ruckmen in the past. Across the past month that he's been in awesome form, he's come up against big-body ruckmen, agile ruckmen as well, and been dominant across the board. But I just think the selection committee probably had too much confidence in TDK having the week off, refreshing him, coming back and being dominant. I just think to ease him back in, Pitney, he actually played a half-decent game against Nankervis the week prior. I just think from here on out, personally, I think it's too much of a risk having TDK one out against a big, bustling, old-school ruckman that's going to, drive his knee into his opponent week after week. So, I just think, the ruck side of things, the ruck battle, which again stems into the discussion about the dominance, the midfield dominance that the Giants had against us. Yeah, it was virtually lost in the middle. We just couldn't get it out. There was clearances galore to the Giants. And when they had the ball, they were just able to handball out of traffic. and out of danger all too often. So, as I said, the uncontested ball discrepancy is the big highlight of that. And it felt as though our pressure dropped. As ours dropped and as the Giants increased, our confidence dropped in turn. Like there was a classic bit of play, it might have been in the third quarter, almost on the cusp of the siren. And I think it might have been Akers, where we're on the edge of 50 and about to drive it inside 50. And he had the ball, and instead of looking forward, trying to hit up a target, he looked sideways. Like that was a trend throughout the game where I think when the confidence was lost, players all too often look sideways instead of looking forward and trying to find avenues to goal virtually. So that was a big giveaway to me that we just didn't have any head in the game and we were too far behind the 8 ball. But having said all that, we will give the guys credit, of course, for getting themselves, I guess, back into the game at the end, giving themselves a chance, even if it was too late, to reduce the margin to where it was. So I guess that's a positive to end the match. It's could have been the opposite, where the boys just completely went into their shell and just absolutely belted. So you got to take the positives where they present, despite being outweighed by the negatives. So that was definitely one of them. The other one I wanted to discuss in terms of points that I noted down, just setup-wise, was the forward setup. I thought that was a little bit of a worry, given, I guess, looking at the previous round against Richmond and how they were able to stifle our forward line. Just with their tactics, they were virtually just flooding our forward line and blocking space for leads, and then, I guess, forcing us to kick high up and unders onto the head of, both Charlie and Harry. And, Richmond were just there to either mark the ball, spoil it, clear it, and have players around the pack at the fall of the ball to clear it where they could. Of course, we were able to break through eventually with that game and provide a little bit more space as the game opened up a bit, and, Richmond obviously changed their tactics. But, I guess likening it to the Giants game, there were so many of those, I guess, the entry points where we're just kicking high, up and under, enough kicks, where the Giants, again, were there to spoil, preventing any leading patterns, which I guess setup-wise we didn't really have, apart from the opening quarter where, Harry was given the space as Charlie drew the extra defender. So, I guess it goes back to that point where, when things were working, things looked great, but it didn't look as though we had an answer inside our forward 50 in terms of adjusting things to try and counter the Giants' tactic of especially putting, double teaming Charlie, which he was just down and out. And I guess down to that point was I was left questioning to myself, like, come halftime, even partway through the third quarter, we were getting absolutely smashed. And we weren't even able to get our hands on the ball to get it inside our forward half. That was the dominance of the Giants. And I was left questioning, like, when's it going to happen where in the past we've used Charlie in defence, we've pushed him down in defence and really utilised his marking prowess as that sort of floating defender. And it never happened. And I was just thinking to myself, like, given we can't get the ball inside our forward half, let alone inside our forward 50, why not try and push Charlie up the ground, get him into the game, put him into defence where we have done in the past, especially the game against Melbourne earlier in the season when they were kind of, trying to wrestle momentum away from us. And we're doing it successfully, and we were able to use Charlie in defence to, be that floating defender, mark the ball, drifting in front of, their most dangerous option, which in this case was obviously Jesse Hogan, who was just marking everything, especially on leads as well. Like, aside from the fact he was marking, against multiple players in a pack, he was able to find space and have those leads where he was able to mark the ball out in front of him. And I was like, we're at the point now in that game where I think Weeders went off with that, again, like a massive corky. I think it was like his 6th that he's had for the year, the poor bloke. But with our best defender on the bench, we needed someone to go back in defence to really shore things up and provide a bit of, blocking of space, double teaming, like utilize the same tactic that the Giants were using against Charlie, flip it on its head, throw Charlie into defence. His 2 direct opponents will have to either, like, one has to follow him, the other one drops back to whoever their original opponent was from our side. And, yeah, just try and get Charlie into the game because he was obviously low on confidence. Every time we were kicking to him, he was double teamed and he just didn't have an avenue to goal. It was just a little bit of a waste, I think. And it was just amazing that the coaching staff forgot about that tactic. I think you've got nothing to lose. When you got your backs against the wall, you're against the ropes, the Giants were in front at that stage. It's like, just try something. Just try and wrestle momentum back into our favour. And Charlie is that tactic that's worked in the past. He reads the ball so well. He's got a very nice leap, as we know. And his marking is just among the best of those players in our team. So, I don't know. I was just left thinking like we could have, changed things up and worked things back into our favour using Charlie, but wasn't to be. I just think when we're a man down and, I've seen it in the past when Weeders has been injured, early in the season, and we're able to, utilise those tactics. And, again, the moment when Weeders goes down, we're just left thinking, what do we do? Let's just rely upon what we've done in the past. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's kind of the other thing that stuck out to me. But aside from that, we can't take anything away from the Giants. I guess to summarise, they were just way too good. We dropped our heads. We lost confidence. We've got to remember we're playing an away game against a side that, mind you, was probably one of the premiership favourites or fancies earlier in the season. So, they need to win to, make the 8 virtually. So I think to summarise the loss, yes, it was disappointing, but we've got to really contextualise it with, yes, it was against the Giants, who they need to make their way back. Second, I think for me, we're not yet at the stage where the expectation should be we're winning every single week. Yes, that is the ideal proposition, but we're just not there yet. And I think, it's a cliche, but, it was almost the loss we needed to have to snap us back to reality and be like, okay, we've got to really fix things up across the board in the midfield, how we set up in the ruck, in defence, how we set up, especially when one of our key pillars and weeders goes down, and so on and so forth. So if we were winning games if we were to win that game like it was looking like we were going to in the first quarter and we went on with it and we weren't exposing those deficiencies, the chinks in our armour, which happened, I think, it may come a stage where, in an important game, say in a final where we're exposed like we were against the Giants, we wouldn't have been able to, I guess, factor that in because we wouldn't have been exposed otherwise, you know what I mean? So you don't know what you don't know. So I think it is a really good learning lesson. It is a loss after 5 consecutive wins or thereabouts. And I guess when you have so many consecutive wins, you just get that taste for it and that expectation. But, we've got to really temper our expectations, I think, for the time being. And, what better stage, I guess, coming up against the Bulldogs, who's another team, backs against the wall. They need to win on, I guess, their home deck at Marvel, which obviously isn't our ideal location compared to the G. So really, it's a good opportunity for the guys to bounce back, reset, and realign our expectations and, work on deficiencies that we've been exposed for. So it's a learning lesson. It's disappointing, but we can't lose our marbles and throw the baby out with the bathwater and so on and so forth. So yeah, let's see how we respond against the Dogs, and looking forward to doing just that. Of course, thank you for tuning in. First bit of content of its kind that I'll be pumping out across the remainder of the season. I figured I was going to start this channel come the start of the 2025 season, but I was like, you know what? I just have that nagging itch in the back of my mind where I just would love to get started as soon as I can. So thank you for tuning in, first and foremost, supporting us, everything else as well. If you can give us a sub, give us a like, that obviously helps with the YouTube algorithm and all that sort of stuff. So really do appreciate the support. And of course, part of the reason why I've started this up is I want to generate discussion amongst supporters as well. So in the comment section down below, feel free to leave your thoughts as well, because as a community, as a supporter base, that's, I guess, what will get us through, especially when we have losses like this where, it's frustrating, but, I guess as a collective, we need to come together and talk things through, contextualize things, and don't lose your head. That's probably the main thing, which is quite easy to do. But apart from that, we will see you in the next one. We'll try and do, as I said, some reviews, previews, and a few other things in between, which I'll have on the back burner as well. Early days, of course, starting up this channel. And if you haven't already, check out my other channel, which is Supercoach Edge. And of course, because I am a bit of a Statistical Nuffy and Super Coach Nuffy, fantasy sports, everything else. If you're not familiar with what Super Coach is, go and check it out. I do that with my brother-in-law, which is some awesome fun. So feel free to check that out. But in the meantime, we will catch you in the next one. Bluebaggers, all the very best.